Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Sorry, I don't know where that came from. I also haven't listened to that song in like ages. But we are back, page 98 of The Body. We're gonna read for 30 minutes. We started right in the middle of a chapter, so let's just get straight to it. Um, and because the contest was honest and strict time limit of 10 minutes was observed, no one objected to a competitor betting on himself. And Bill, who who Bill Travis did so every year. Talk was, as he nodded, smiling to his audience on that summer night in 1960, that he had bet a substantial amount on himself again, and that the best he had been able to do this was 1 for 5 odds. If you're not the betting type, let me explain it this way. They've had to put $250 at risk to win 50. Not a good deal at all. But it was the price of success. And as he stood there, soaking up the applause and smiling easily, he didn't look too worried about it. And the defending champion, Mayor Charbonneau, trumpeted, Gretna's own Bill Travis. Who, Bill? How many you going through, Bill? How many going through tonight, Bill? You going for 10, Billy boy? I got a 2 spot on you, Bill. Don't let me down, boy. Save me one of those pies, Trav. Nodding and smiling with all proper modesty, Bill Travis allowed the mayor to tie his bib around his neck. Then he sat down at the far right end of the table, near the place where Mayor Charbonneau would stand during the contest. From right to left, then the eaters were Bill Travis and David Lardass Hogan, Bob Cormier, Principal John Wiggins, and Calvin Spear holding down the tool of the far left. Mayor Charbonneau introduced Sylvia Dodge, who was even more of a contest figure than Bill Travis himself. She had been president of Gretna Ladies Auxiliary for years, beyond telling since the first Manassas, according to some town wits, and it was who oversaw the baking of each year's pies, strictly subjecting each to her own rigorous quality control, which included a weigh-in ceremony on Mr. Ban Ban Chick Ban Sissik's butcher scales down at the Freedom Market. This to make sure that each pie weighed within an ounce of others. Sylvia smiled regally down at the crowd. Her blue hair twinkled under the hot glow and the light bulbs. She made a short speech about how glad she was that so much of the town had turned out to celebrate their hardy pioneer forebears. The people who made this country great for it was great, but not only on the grassroots level where Mayor Charbonneau would be leading the local Republicans to the hallowed seats of town government again in November, but on the national level where the team of Nixon and Lodge would take the torch of freedom from our great and beloved general and hold it high for. Calvin Spearbelly rumbled noisily, going. There was laughter and even some applause. Sylvia Dodge, who knew perfectly well that Calvin was both a Democrat and a Catholic, either would have been forgivable alone, but the two combined, never. Managed to blush, smile, and furious all at the same time. She cleared her throat and wound up with a ringing exhortation to every boy and girl in the audience, telling them to always hold the red, white, and blue high, hold in their hands and in their hearts, and to remember that smoking was a dirty, evil habit which you cough. The boys and girls in the audience, most of whom would be wearing peace medallions and smoking not camels but marijuana in another 8 years, shuffled their feet and waited for the action to begin. Less talk, more eating. Something in the back row called, and there was another burst of applause. It was heartier this time. Mayor Charbonneau handed Sylvia a stopwatch and a silver police whistle, which would blow at the end of 10 minutes of all out pie eating. Mayor Charbonneau would then step forward and hold up the hand of the winner. Are you ready? His owner's voice rolled triumphantly through the great day PA and off down Main Street. The five pie eater declared they were ready. Are you set? His owner inquired further. The eaters growled, and they were indeed set. Down street a boy set off rattling skein of firecrackers. Mayor Charbonneau raised one pudgy hand and then dropped it. Go. Hello.
Nina.
Bro, I'm in the middle of reading. What do you want?
I know you could take 20 minutes off of reading just to pick me up.
Oh, see, I just started, bro. Yo,
No,
my
you
my
didn't.
mom my mom can get you, bro. I gotta go to work at 12, gang.
Ah,
Cause I work now again. Because I'm yeah. So
when do you come back? Wait,
3.
are we
We're definitely going to Uniqlo.
okay? Okay.
Okay, bye. I shouldn't have answered that call. Five heads dropped into five pie plates. The sound was like 5 large feet stamping firmly into mud. Wet chopping noises rose on the mild night air, and then we bolted out as the bedders and partitions in the crowd began to cheer on their favorites. And no more than the first pie had been demolished before most people realized that a possible upset was in the making. Lourdes Hogan, a 7-1 underdog because of his age and inexperience, was eating like a boy possessed. His jaw machine gun his up crust. The contest rules required that only the top crust of the pie would be eating, not the bottom. And when that had disappeared, a huge sucking noise issued from between his lips. It was like the sound of an industrial vacuum cleaner going to work. Then his whole head disappeared into the pie plate. He raised it 15 seconds later to indicate he was done. His cheeks and forehead were smeared with blueberry juice, and he looked like an extra in a minstrel show. He was done before the legendary Bill Travis had finished half of his first pie. Startled applause went up to went up as the mayor examined Laura's pie's plate and pronounced it clean enough. He wiped a second pie into place before the pacemaker. Laura's had gobbled a regulation pie in just 40 seconds. It was a contest record. He went at the second pie even more furiously, yet his head bobbing and smooching in soft blueberry filling, and Bill Travis threw him a worried glance as he called for his second blueberry pie. As he told friends later, he felt he was in a real contest for the first time since 1957, when George Gamage gobbled 3 pies in 4 minutes and then fainted dead away. He had to wonder, he said, if he was up against a boy or a demon. He thought of money he had writing on this and redoubled his efforts. But if Travis had redoubled. Lourdes had treblood. Blueberries flew from his second pie dish, staining the tablecloth around him like a Jackson Pollock painting. There were blueberries in his hair, blueberries on his bib, blueberries standing on his forehead as if in agony of concentration. He had actually begun to sweat blueberries. Done, he cried, lifting his head from his second pie before Bill Travis had even consumed the crust on his new pie. Better slow down, boy, Hisner murmured. Charbonneau himself had $10 riding on Bill Travis. You got to pace yourself if you want to hold out. It was as if Lourdes hadn't heard. He tore into his third pie with lunatic speed, jaws moving with lightning rapidity. And then, but I must interpret for a month to tell you that there was an empty bottle in the medicine cabinet at Lardas Hogan's house. Earlier, that bottle had been 3/4 full of pearl yellow castor oil, and perhaps the most noxious fluid that the good Lord in his infinite wisdom ever allowed upon or beneath the surface of the earth. Lardas had emptied the bottle himself, drinking every last drop and then licking the rim, his mouth twisting, his belly gauging sourly, his brain filled with thoughts of sweet revenge. As he rapidly worked his way through his third pie, Calvin Spear, dead as predicted, had not yet finished his first. Lardas began to deliberately torture himself with grisly fantasies. He was not eating pies at all. He was eating cow flops. He was eating great big goops of greasy, grimy gopher guts. He was eating diced up woodchuck intestines and blueberry sauce poured over him. Rancid blueberry sauce. He finished his third pie, called for his fourth, now one full pie ahead of the legendary Bill Travis. The fickle crowd, sensing a new unexpected champ in the making, began to cheer him on lustily. But Lardas had no hope or intention of winning. He could not have continued at the pace he was currently setting if his own mother's life had been the prize. And besides, winning for him was losing. Revenge was the only blue ribbon he sought. His belly grown with castor oil, his throat opening and quickly sickly. He finished his fourth pie and called his fifth, the ultimate pie blueberries, become Electra, so to speak. He dropped his head into the dish, breaking the crust, and snuffled blueberries up his nose. Blueberries went down his shirt. The contents of his stomach seemed to suddenly gain weight. He chewed up pasty pastry crust and swallowed it. He inhaled blueberries, and suddenly the moment of revenge was at hand. His stomach, loaded beyond endurance, revolted. It clenched like a strong hand encased in a slick rubber glove. His throat opened. Lardas raised his head. He grinned at Bill Travis, and with blue teeth. Puke rumbled up his throat like Sixten Peterbilt shooting through a tunnel. It roared out of his mouth in huge blue and yellow glurt, warm and gaily steaming. It covered Bill Travis, who only had time to utter one nonsensible goog. Was what it sounded like. Woman in the audience screamed. Calvin Spear, who had watched this unannounced event with a numb and surprising expression on his face, leaned conversationally over the table as if to explain the gasping audience just what was happening, and puke on the head of Marguerite Charbonneau, the mayor's wife. She screamed and backed away. You guys have to pick up Anthony. Pawing futilely. Futilely. Oh my god. At her hair, which was now covered with a mixture of crushed berries, baked beans, and practically disgusted frankfurters, the latter who had been cow spear dinner. She turned to her good friend Maria Lavin and threw up on the front of Maria's buckskin jacket. In rapid succession, like a replay of firecrackers, Bill Travis blew a great and seemingly surcharged jet of vomit over the first two rows of spectators. His stunned face proclaimed to one and all, "Man, I just can't believe I'm doing this." Chuck Day, who had received a generous portion of Bill Travis's surprise gift, threw up on his hushed puppies and then blinked at them wonderingly, knowing the full well that stuff would never come off. Sudi. What do these words mean? I don't know what these words mean. John Wiggins, principal of Gretna Elementary, opened his blue-lined mouth and said reprovingly, "Really, this has yerk?" As befitted a man of his breed and position, he did it in his own pie plate. His and Nurse Charbonneau, who found himself suddenly presiding over what must have seemed more like a stomach flu hospital ward than a pie eating contest, opened his mouth to call the whole thing off, and upchucked all over the microphone. Jesus save us, moaned Sylvia Dodge, and then her outraged super fried clams, coleslaw, butter, and sugar corn, 2 ears worth, and a generous helping of Muriel Harrington's Bosco chocolate cake bolted out the emergency exit and landed with a large wet splash on the back of Mayor's Robert Hall suit coat. Lord S. Hogan, now the absolute apogee of his young life, beamed happily over the audience. Puke was everywhere. People staggered around in drunken circles, holding their throats and making weird crying noises. Somebody's pet Pekin geese ran past the stage, yapping crazily, and a man wearing jeans and Western style silk shirt threw up on it, nearly drowning it. Mrs. Brockway, the Methodist minister's wife, had a long basso bleaching noise, which was followed by a gusher of degenerated roast beef, mashed potatoes, and an apple cobbler. The cobbler looked as if it might have been good when it went down. Jerry, who had come to see his pet mechanic walk away with all the marbles again, decided to get righteous frick out of his madhouse. He got about 15 yards before tripping over a little kid's wagon and realized he had landed in a puddle of warm bile. Jerry tossed his cookies in his own lap and told folks later he only thanked Providence he had been wearing his coveralls, and Miss Norman, who taught Latin and English fundamentals at Gretna Constellated High School, vomited into her purse in agony of propriety. Lord S. Hogan watched it all, his large face calm and beaming, his stomach suddenly sweat and steady with a warm bomb it might never know again. That bomb was a feeling of utter and complete satisfaction. He stood up, looking the slightly tacky microphone from the trembling hand of Mayor Charbonneau, and said, "My God, bro, this." Hold up, yo. I might actually have to take a break. I'll be right back. Oh my God, bro. Okay, let's just starting a new chapter. Thank God. I actually hated that chapter. I'm sorry. It was so boring. I declared this contest as a draw. Then he pulled the mic down, walked off the back of the platform, and goes straight home. His mother there on the account of she didn't get a babysitter for Lorda's little sister, who was only 2. And as soon as he comes in, all covered with puke and pie drool, still wearing his bib, he says, "Davy, did you win?" But he didn't say a frickin' word, you know. He goes upstairs to his bedroom, locks the door, and lays down on his bed. I downed the last swallow of Chris's Coke and tossed it into the woods. "Yeah, that's cool. Then what happened?" Teddy asked eagerly. "I don't know." "What do you mean you don't know?" Teddy asked. "It means it's the end. When you don't know what happens next, that's the end." "What?" Vern cried. That was an upset, suspicious look on his face, like he thought maybe he'd just gotten rooked playing penny up bingo at the Top Sham Fair. "What's all this happy crap? How did it come out?" You have to use your imagination. "You have to use your imagination," Chris said patiently. "No, I ain't," Vern said angrily. "He's supposed to use his imagination. He made up the frickin' story." "Yeah, what happened to the cat?" Teddy perished. No, perished. I meant persisted. "Come on, Gordy, tell us." "I think his dad was at the pie eat, and when he came home, he beat the living crap out of Lordass." "Yeah, right," Chris said. "I bet that's just what happened." And, I said, the kids went right on calling him lardass, except that maybe some of them started calling him puke your guts too. That ending sucks, Teddy said sadly. And that's why I didn't want to tell it. You could have made it so he shot his father and ran away and joined the Texas Rangers, Teddy said. How about that? Chris and I exchanged a glance. Chris raised one shoulder in a barely perceptible shrug. I guess so. Hey, you got any new Dio stories, Gordy? Not just now. Maybe I'll think of some. I didn't want to upset Teddy, but I wasn't very interested in checking out what was happening in Dio either. Sorry you didn't go for this one better. Nah, it was good, Teddy said, right up at the end. It was good. All that puking was really cool. Yeah, that was really cool. Really gross, Vern agreed. But Teddy's right about the ending. It was sort of a gip. Yeah, I said and sighed. Chris stood up. Let's do some walking, he said. It was still bright daylight, the sky a hot, steely blue, but our shadows had begun to trail out long. I remember that as a kid, September days always seemed to end much too soon, catching me by surprise. It was as if something inside my heart expected it to always be June, with daylight lingering in the sky until almost 9:30. What time is it, Gordy? I looked at my watch and was astonished to see it was after 5. Yeah, let's go, Teddy said. But let's make camp before dark so we can get wood and stuff. I'm getting hungry too. 6:30, Chris promised. Okay with you guys? It was. We started to walk again using the cinders beside the tracks now. Soon the river was so far behind us we couldn't even hear its sound. Mosquitoes hummed and slapped one off my neck. Vern and Teddy were walking up ahead, working out some sort of complicated comic book trade. Chris was beside me, hands in his pockets, shirt slapping against his knees and thighs like an apron. I got some Winstons, he said, hawked them off my old man's dresser. One apiece. For after supper. Yeah, that's boss. That's when a cigarette tastes best, Chris said after supper. Right. He walked in silence for a while. That's a really fine story, Chris said suddenly. They're just a little too dumb to understand. No, it's not that hot. It's a mumbler. That's what you always say. Don't give me that BS. You don't believe. Are you gonna write it down, the story? Probably. But not for a while. I can't write 'em down right after I tell them. It'll keep. What? Vern said. What Vern said about ending being a gip. Yeah, Chris laughed. Life's a gip, you know it. I mean, look at us. Now we have a good time. Sure, Chris said. All the frickin' time. You wet. I laughed. Chris did too. They come out of you just like bubbles out of soda pop, he said after a while. What does? But I thought I knew what he meant. The stories, that really bugs me, man. It's like you could tell a million stories and still get the ones on top. You'll be a great writer someday, Gordy. No, I don't think so. Yeah, you will. Maybe you'll even write about us guys if you ever get hard up for material. Have a pretty freaking have to be a pretty freaking hard up. I gave him the elbow. There was another period of silence, and then he asked suddenly, You ready for school? I shrugged. Whoever was. You got a little excited about going back, seeing your friends. You were curious about your new teachers and what they would be like. Pretty young things just of teachers college that you could rag or some old top kick that had been there since the Alamo. In a funny way, you could even get excited about a long, drowning classes because as summer vacation neared its and it ended, you sometimes got bored enough to believe you could learn something. But summer boredom was nothing like the school boredom that always set in by the end of the second week. And by the beginning of the third week, you got down to the real business. Could you hit Stinky Fix in the back of the head with your art gum while the teacher was putting the principal exports of South America on the board? How many good loud squeaks could you get off on the varnished surface of your desk if your teacher's hands were real sweaty? If you're what? Yeah. Who could cut the loudest farts in the locker room while changing up for phys ed? How many girls could you get to play who goose the moose during lunch hour? Higher learning, baby. Junior high, Chris said. And you know what, Gordy? By next June, we'll all be quits. What are you talking about? Why would that happen? It's not going to be like grammar school, that's why. You'll be in college courses. Me, Teddy, and Vern will all be in the shop courses playing pocket pool with the rest of the guys making ashtrays and birdhouses. Vern might even have to go into remedical no remedial. You meet a lot of new guys, smart guys. That's just the way it works, Gordy. That's how they got it set up. Meet a lot of Need a lot of is what you mean, I said. He gripped my arm. No, man, don't say that. Don't even think that. They'll get your stories, not like Vern and Teddy. Damn. Frick those stories. I'm not going in with a lot of no sir. If you don't then you're an a-hole. What's asshole about wanting to be with your friends? He looked at me thoughtfully as if deciding whether or not to tell me something. We had slowed down. Vern and Teddy had pulled almost half a mile ahead. The sun, lowering now, came at us through the overlacing trees and broken dusty shafts, turning everything gold. But it was a tawdry gold, dim store gold, if you can dig that. The tracks stretched ahead of us in the gloom that was just starting to gather. They seemed almost to twinkle. Star pricks of light stood out on them here and there, and if some nutty rich guy mass masquerading as common laborer had decided to embed a diamond in steel every 6 yards or so. It was still hot. The sweat rolled off us, slicking our bodies. If your friends can drag you down. It's assholes if your friends can drag you down, Chris said finally. I know about you and your folks. They don't give a crap about you. Your big brother was the only one they cared about, like my dad when Frank got thrown into the stockade in Portsmouth. That was when he started always being mad at us, other kids, and hitting us all the time. Your dad doesn't beat you, but maybe that's even worse. He got you asleep. You could tell him you were enrolled in the frickin' shop division, and you know what he'd do? He'd turn to the next page in his paper and say, "Well, that's nice, Gordon. Go ask your mother what's for dinner, and don't tell me different. I've met him. I didn't I didn't try to tell him different. It's scary to find out that someone else, even a friend, knows just how things are with you. You're just a kid, Gordy. Gee, thanks, Dad. I wish to hell I was your father, he said angrily. You wouldn't go around talking about those stupid shop courses if I was. It's like God gave you something, man. All those stories you can make up, he said. This is what we got for you, kid. Try not to lose it. But kids lose everything unless somebody looks out for them. And if your folks are too effed up to do it, then maybe I ought to. Whew, and I remember that line from the movie too. Oh my god. His face looked like he was expecting me to take a swing at him. It was set and unhappy in the green gold late afternoon light. He had broken the cardinal rule for kids in those days. You could say anything about another kid. You could rank him to the dogs and back, but you didn't say a bad word ever about his mom and dad. That was a fabled automatic. The same way not inviting your Catholic friends home to dinner on Friday unless you checked first to make sure they weren't having meat as fabled automatic. If a kid ranked out your mom and dad, you have to feed them some knuckles. Those stories you tell no good to anybody but you, Gordy. If you go along with us just because you want to the gang, just because you don't want the gang to break up, you'll wind up just another grunt making C's to get on the teams. You'll go to high and take some freaking shop courses and throw erasers and pull your meat along with the rest of the grunts. Get detentions, freaking suspensions. And after a while, all you'll care about is getting a car so that you can take some skag to the hoops. or down the frickin' Twin Bridge Tavern. Then you'll knock her up and spend the rest of your life in the mill or some frickin' shoe shop in Auburn or maybe even up the Hillcrest plucking chickens. And that pie story will never get written down. Nothing will get written down because you'll be another wise guy with with stuff for brains. Chris Chambers was 12 when he said that all to me, but while he was saying it, his face crumped and folded into something oldest, and ageless. He spoke tonelessly, colorlessly, but nevertheless, when he said, struck terror into my bowels. If it was as if he had lived that whole life already, that life where they tell you to step right up and spin the wheel of fortune, and it spins so pretty. The guy steps on the pedal and it comes up double zeros, house number, everybody loses. They give you a free pass and they turn on the rain machine. Pretty funny, huh? A joke even Vern Tessio could appreciate. He grabbed my naked arm and his fingers closed tight. They dug grooves into my flesh. They ground um at the bones. His eyes were hooded and dead, so dead, man, that he might have just fallen out of his own coffin. I know what people think of my family in this town. I know what they think of me and what they expect. Nobody even asked me if I took the milk money that time. I just got a 3-day vacation. Did you take it? I asked. I had never asked him before, and if you had told me I ever would, I would have called you crazy. The words came out in a little dry bullet. Yeah, he said. Yeah, I took it. It was silent for a moment, looking ahead at Teddy and Vern. You knew I took it, Teddy knew. Everybody knew. Even Vern knew, I think. I started to deny it and then close my mouth. He was right, and no matter what I might have said to my mother and father about a person I was supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, I had known. Then maybe I was sorry and tried to give it back, Chris said. I stared at him, my eyes widening. You tried to give it back? Maybe, I said, just maybe. And maybe I took it to the old ladies, Simonson told her. And maybe the money was all there, but I got a 3-day vacation anyway, because the money never showed up. And maybe the next week old lady Simmons had this brand new skirt on when he came to school. I stared at Chris, speechless with horror. He smiled at me, but it was crimped, terrible smile that never touched his eyes. Just maybe, he said, but I remembered the new skirt, a light brown paisley, sort of full. I remembered thinking that it made old lady Simmons look younger and almost pretty. Chris, how much was that milk money? Almost $7. Christ, I whispered. So just say that I stole the milk money, but then old lady Simmons stole it from me. Just suppose I told that story, me, Chris Chambers, kid brother of Frank Chambers and Eyeball Chambers. You think anybody would have believed it? No way, I whispered. Jesus Christ, he smiled, his wintry, awful smile. And do you think that would have dared try something like that if it had been one of those Dodge bags from up the view that had taken the money? No, I said. Yeah, and if it had been one of them, Simmons would have said, "Kay, we'll forget it this time, but we're gonna spank your wrists real hard, and if you ever do it again, we'll have to spank both wrists." But me, well, maybe she had her eye on that skirt for a long time. Anyway, she had the chance and she took it. I was stupid one for even trying to give that money back, but I never thought that a teacher, oh, who gives a frick anyway? Why am I even talking about it? He swiped an arm angrily across his eyes and realized he was almost crying. Chris, I said, why don't you go into college courses? You're smart enough. They decided all in the office and their smart little conference. The teachers, they sit around in this big circle jerk and they all say, yeah, yeah, right. All they give a frick about is whether you behaved in grammar school and what the town thinks of your family. All they're deciding is whether or not you're contaminated all those precious college course douchebags. But maybe, but maybe I might try because I want to gear out Castle Rock and go to college. Never see my old man or my any of my brothers again. I want to go someplace where nobody knows me, and I don't have any black marks against me before I start. But I don't know if I can do that. Why not? People, people drag you down. Who? I asked, thinking he must mean the teachers or adult monsters like Miss Simmons who had wanted a new skirt. Or maybe his brother Eyeball, who hung around Ace and Billy and Charlie and the rest, or maybe his own mom and dad. But he said, your friends drag you down, Gordy. Don't you know that? He pointed at Vern and Teddy, who were standing and waiting for us to catch up. They were laughing about something. In fact, Vern was about to bust a gut. Your friends do. They're like drowning. They're like drowning guys who are holding on to your legs. You can't save them. I can only drown with them. Come on, you freaking slowpokes, Vern shouted. Still laughing. Yeah, come on, Chris called. Yeah, come in, Chris called. And before I could say anything, he began to run. I ran too, but he caught up to them before I could catch up to him. That wasn't a very emotional chapter. I have to get ready for work, y'all. I'm so sorry, but I can't remember what page I started on, but it was probably I read another 12 pages. That's it. That's all. I'm gonna go now. Peace out.